Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and a special welcome if you're new. My name is Shelly and I'm the owner and creator behind the Vintage Hen and Chick. And in today's video, I am going to be doing a makeover of an old beat up shutter. So if you enjoy trash to treasure upcycles, thrift flips, furniture flips, or crafting in general, you are in the right place. Now make sure to subscribe to my channel and that way you'll get notified whenever I upload a new video, and let's get started. I had this old shutter in my garage. As you can see, it is beat up, it's old, it's dingy, and it was filthy when I first took it out of the garage. And I took it and put it in my utility sink and sprayed it down with hot soapy water and used a scrub brush just to get everything off of there and get it all cleaned up. So we're going to start out by giving the slats on the shutter a coat of Dixie Belle Fluff chalk paint. And I'm painting these slats in this white color because we're going to be decoupaging these. And so whenever I do decoupage, I typically like to have a base color that is lighter, and that's going to make my decoupage paper stand out more. You could use a darker paint color underneath your decoupage paper if you want a more moody look, but I want my decoupage paper on this shutter to stand out, and so I'm going to give just the slats a couple of coats of the fluff, and then the outside I'm going to paint a different color. So I will continue to paint all these slats until I have them covered with the fluff chalk paint, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I have all the slats painted with the white chalk paint. I did 2 coats, and now I'm going to paint the rest of the shutter in Sweet Pickins milk paint in the color Lantern. And if you've ever used milk paint before, it is a 1-to-1 ratio of warm water to milk paint, and milk paint comes in a powder form. And you put that in your cup and you just mix it up good for about 2 minutes. And then I always set my milk paint aside for about 10 minutes, and then that way it will thicken up some. You want your milk paint to be the consistency of a melted milkshake. So I have my milk paint all ready to go, and I'm going to give the entire border of the shutter a coat of the milk paint in the Lantern. And Lantern is a very pigmented black color, and so I'm just going to do 1 coat of the Lantern, and I'm also going to do the back side of the shutter in the Lantern. So I'm going to continue to paint the rest of the shutter in the milk paint, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now my milk paint is completely dry, and I'm just taking my finger sander with some 220 grit sandpaper on there, and I'm gonna sand everywhere that I've painted the lantern milk paint. Now, milk paint can be a little temperamental. You never really know what it's going to do. I wasn't sure if it was going to chip or not chip, but it didn't really matter to me for this project. If it chipped, that's great. If it didn't, that's great. Either way, you always want to sand your milk paint just to get rid of any of the bumps or the clumps that may have been inside your milk paint that didn't get completely dissolved. So I'm going to sand the entire exterior where the milk paint is to smooth it out, and then we will move on to the next step. Like I mentioned, I am going to decoupage the slats of the shutter. And for this, I am using Dixie Belle's Vintage Butterflies decoupage paper. And so I'm just measuring out how long of a piece I'll need and cutting that out here. And then I'm going to cut a piece of decoupage paper for each individual slat and apply it that way. I figured that would be the easiest way to apply the decoupage paper to the shutter. So I will just continue to measure out the size that I need, cut it out, and then I'm going to cut strips of decoupage paper that match the size of each of the slats on the shutter. So I've cut all my pieces for the slats, and you want to make sure that you keep them in order according to how you want your image on your decoupage paper to show up. And so I stacked them all in order so that way my image looked cohesive down the shutters. And I'm going to use Dixie Belle's top coat in the satin finish, which is my favorite decoupage medium. And I'm going to apply a good coat of that satin top coat on each slat just so I can get good adherence of my decoupage paper. So I'm applying the top coat, and then I'm laying my piece of decoupage paper down, and then taking my brush and going over it to smooth everything down, make sure that there's no wrinkles or bubbles, and just to make sure that everything is stuck good to that slat. I will come back again when I top coat the whole shutter and just make sure that everything that may have not gotten completely adhered is adhered. So I'm going to go down the shutter, putting the top coat on each shutter, laying my decoupage paper down. And as you see me do this, you'll start to notice how the image of the decoupage paper is starting to take shape as I go down the slats of the shutter. And that's because when I cut the decoupage paper into strips, I kept them all in order, and that way my image turns out looking like something and not just something that's random. So I have let my decoupage paper completely dry. And once it was completely dry, I didn't record this, but I just took my X-Acto knife and went around the edge and trimmed off any excess decoupage paper that was on there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal the entire shutter in. And for that, again, I'm going to use my Dixie Belle top coat in the satin finish. And I'm going to seal where I used milk paint. And I'm also going to go over the shutter rungs again just to make sure that I have every loose edge adhered down to the shutter. So I'm going to go through all the shutter rungs and I'm going to go around the edge and just seal everything in. And I'm also going to seal the back side of the shutter, make sure everything there is sealed in good. So I'll continue to seal everything in and then we will let it dry and then we'll move on to the next step. So I've let my top coat completely dry and now we're going to embellish the shutter with some Dixie Belle copper gilding wax. I wanted to highlight some of the areas, the outside edges, the piece of hardware, the shutter slats. So I'm taking my copper gilding wax and just an artist brush, and with the gilding wax, you need to remember that a little goes a long way. So you hardly need any on your brush at all. You could actually even use your fingertip if that's easier for you. And so I am just dipping my brush in the gilding wax and I'm going to go around the whole outside edge of the shutter. I'm going to go around the inside edge of the shutter. I'm going to put a strip of gilding wax over the top of each shutter rung just to highlight those. And I'm also going to put the gilding wax on the hardware as well as the sides. Anywhere that there is kind of a raised edge or a little bit of detail, just to make it pop and look a little bit more beautiful. So I'm going to continue to apply the gilding wax everywhere that there's an edge or a detail. And then once that is done, this shutter will be completely transformed and you'll be able to see the final project. What do you think of the shutter all completely made over? I think it turned out great. I love the colors, I love the butterflies, I love everything about it. Let me know in the comments what you think about it and if this is something that you might try and do. Just so you know, most of the products that I used in this video can be purchased at my website, thevintagehandandchic.com, and I'll leave the links of that in the description. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope I've inspired you to upcycle your thrifted garage sale and old home decor because it's so much fun to turn it into something more current or more your style. I'll be back next week with another video, and I hope to see you then. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, and that way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.